I'm here on behalf of Governor Cuomo, as Willie said, to talk about the governor's People First campaign, which he kicked off earlier this week in Syracuse. It's not a talk about the environment per se, but there is connections. It's an effort to connect people with government. The governor, throughout his campaign, argued that things will happen in Albany if the people want them to happen. And it's really simple. If people re-engage and tell their representatives what they want, then Albany will listen. There's about 6 weeks left in the legislative session, and the governor has 3 major goals, all of which he articulated throughout his campaign. He wants to get the economy back up and running, he wants to enact ethics reform, and he wants New York to move forward on its social agenda. Passing the budget was a huge first step. The budget was honest, it was on time, and it closed a $10 billion deficit without raising any new taxes. I've been around state government for a long time, in and out, but as Willie said, I worked for Governor Mario Cuomo many years ago, and I don't remember a budget being passed on time that closed such a big gap without any new taxes. It was really unprecedented, at least in my experience with government, and as I said, it was huge. Although DEC, like all state agencies, had to further reduce its operating budget, as lots of agencies did, the budget enacted by the governor and the legislature is a giant step forward to restoring fiscal sanity in New York and stopping these recurring rolling deficits that were just going on year after year, where we had to cut budgets, we lost staff, we lost the ability to do a lot of things that we had done historically, but it was a fact of life. We had to do it. The state had to balance its own budget. But the state budget's only part of the story. More needs to be done, obviously. New York has among the highest taxes in the nation. Here's some facts and figures for you. The median U.S. property tax is $1,917. In New York, it's $3,755. That's nearly 100% higher than the national average. Local property taxes grew by 73% from 1998 to 2008, more than twice the rate of inflation during that same period. Businesses in New York pay $3.1 billion in corporate income taxes and more than $16 billion in property taxes annually. So it's no wonder that businesses are leaving New York. Despite a 4.2% decline in enrollment from 2006 to 2010, overall school expenditures in New York increased by 120% over the same period. And it hasn't translated into better performance. New York is first in spending on education in the nation, and we're 34th in results. As the governor has said repeatedly, New York has no economic future as the tax capital of the nation. So what's the answer? It's fiscal discipline. Just like the process the state went through this last year, local governments have to go through that as well. The governor's proposed a property tax cap that would apply to all school districts and all local governments. The cap would be 2% or the rate of inflation, whichever is less. Local governments do have an out. They could exceed the cap upon a 2/3 vote of the governing body, or in the case of school districts, by a 60% vote of the residents of the school district. There's no question that rapidly rising taxes are driving New Yorkers and jobs out of state. Adopting a tax cap will impose fiscal discipline and will help reverse this trend. Of course, the tax cap needs to be accompanied by mandate relief, and the governor's special counsel, Larry Schwartz, has been working with all state agencies, including DEC, the Conference of Mayors, and others to identify both regulatory and statutory ways to relieve local government mandates. A final note on tax caps. They work. Massachusetts was able to simultaneously lower taxes and increase school performance. Before it enacted its cap in 1980, it was the second highest tax state in the nation. It's now 23rd. The governor is, as you all know, I think, is also determined to reform Albany. Many people have lost faith in government due to the years of corruption, scandal, and gridlock. True ethics reform would go a long way to restoring people's confidence in government. And this in no way impugns members of the legislature like Mr. Cahill. It was a handful of people who unfortunately soured Albany's good name. Here's what an ethics bill would look like, what Governor Cuomo would like to see in an ethics bill. The creation of an independent body to oversee the legislative and executive branches. Till today, the legislature polices itself, and I think it goes without saying that self-policing is an oxymoron. It would include expanded disclosure by public officials of outside sources of income and the clients from which they or their firms receive compensation. There's nothing wrong with legislators having other jobs. Not all of them do, but lots do. It's good to have diversity in the legislature. It's good to have businessmen. But they should disclose who their clients are, where their money comes from, and if there's a connection between what they do privately and what they're doing publicly. It would also include expanded lobbyist disclosure of any business relationship with public officials and the source of funding used for lobbying activity. And going forward, if public officials committed a felony related to their official duties, they would be forced to forfeit their pensions. I think everybody agrees that would be a good idea. Finally, in addition to ethics reform, a majority of New Yorkers want social reform as well. New York has always been on the forefront of social reform. The modern-day environmental movement started just south of here on the Hudson River when Con Ed proposed a pump storage project on Storm King Mountain. The women's rights movement started in Seneca Falls in western New York. And the labor movement started in New York City in the wake of the Triangle Fire. Marriage equality is an issue of civil rights, and New York has been surpassed by many other countries and many other states which have legalized same-sex marriage. Marriage equality is simply a question of fairness and principle. The state shouldn't discriminate against same-sex couples who wish to get married. Barring marriage equality, though, has enormous repercussions, from hospital visitation rights to medical decisions to sick leave to access to health insurance and pensions. It's past time that same-sex couples enjoyed the same legal and economic protections enjoyed by opposite-sex couples. So those are the highlights of what the governor wants to see in the legislature in the coming weeks.